All right, let's get started here. So we get Anki up and running. And all synchronized. All right, let's get at it. Actually, before I forget, I should also turn on closed captions. Let's see if those start working here soon. Looks like we're ready to go. Okay, let me just get some drink here. Okay. So I thought it might be interesting to add some of the screen captures that I've been taking and assigning to various folders, basically like things I want to know at some point, either right now or later on. So for example, say I opened computer science. In fact, we'll keep that open in a separate tab here. Looking through. So obviously a lot of these I'm going to need to probably archive. I still have not yet figured out the ideal sort of archival system for a kind of a second brain, content management system, but a personal knowledge management system. So every time, I find something interesting, I take a screen capture, and I have a habit to where I need to, be titling those and putting them into appropriate folders to at least have a chance to see them again later on. Now, one thing I could do right away with something like this, with any of these really, is drop them into this new card format that I made that I'm calling a Cop Basic. It basically allows you to show any source file, image, GIF, video, I believe, with the right plugin. You can basically if I put an X here, for example, it's just going to show this source file. Maybe something I want to be reminded of once in a while, but not necessarily graded on or anything like that, which in the past I used to simply make a card with like a good story or a good quote or something that I wanted to remember, but not necessarily be more reminded of once in a while, and not necessarily have to know it word for word to be tested on it yet. Maybe in the future, but maybe, I just want to get it into the system and have it be reminding me of it, once in a while, because any spaced repetition software can also be thought of as a spaced presentation software, because, the spacing effect is, a review or a presentation is all the same to the brain, basically. Your sensory input needs to be recognized. So for that to happen, you have to have that anchor point in your brain already to know what you're looking at. So basically, a review in Anki is the same as a presentation in Anki, right? Because it's still being done using the spacing algorithm, which is generally thought of as like a little bit more than double. So you'll see it in 1 day, then in 3 days, 7 days, so on and so forth, is a real quick and dirty way to think about it. Or I could put this in and make one question, and then later on, because now I have the source file in there, I could make other questions later on. So this is like just a quick and dirty way as well of just like getting things out of, your system and into Anki. So let's see though. Right away, I could be like, what does this image describe? Which is not maybe the best type of question because it's not too specific. But again, this is just kind of stage 1 rough draft. I don't even know much about this title. This is basically just a way to get me thinking and remembering what I even did with this title. And this is such a common thing I do with these types of cards that I might even try to make this happen automatically, where just by putting in any image here in the source field would automatically create a card that says, what does this image describe? That could be something to think about doing in the future as well. Basically, though, we see human-computer interaction, Unit 1. So this looks like 19-day instruction explaining the interaction between humans and computers. Or like a 19-day, like a curriculum. Interaction, teaching, and let's use the word teaching here instead of explaining. Teaching how, teaching about how computers and people interact. So this in fact, I'm not even sure where I pulled this from, which, in the future, I might actually want to start thinking about having a system where when I make a title for one of those screenshots, I put in like a hyphen source, perhaps. Could be something quite useful. But, this is obviously talking about some kind of methodology for teaching computer science as well. That does remind me, wouldn't it be nice to also have a plugin to show the title of what you named it? You name the image itself. That could be nice. Now that we have an actual question here, though, we don't need to do source only. We're going to want to put in today's date. One nice thing is I will add reverse on this because I could be prompted with a 19-day curriculum teaching about how computers and people interact and want to have to think of this in my head. Now, maybe I don't need to know it exactly yet because I'm not necessarily even convinced that this is the ideal way to go about it. But, I mean, it certainly seems like something with a lot of forethought. 19 days showing how or showing one possibility about how to teach about how computers and people interact. So right there, though, at least I'm getting it in the system, into my so-called second brain of Anki, and adding it in. And now I can go over here, and now at least it's not going to be, rattling around my own head. Let's see here. Just kind of continue on. I can keep going in this folder. I can go, to another folder. What's this guy? See, now this is I kind of would love as a cool potential thing we could do for the computer programming classes. How could I make this into a card? I also like to think about this as like a, like I said, the first step. So I'm putting it into Anki, but maybe it's not the best question. Or I'm putting it into Anki, but maybe it's not even the best, or I don't even have a question yet. I don't know what to do with it yet. But I'm doing something with it. I'm putting it into a place where I know I'll be reminded of it on a frequent enough basis that each time I see it, maybe I make a goal of adding a little thing to it, adding a question to it, starting a little file that says, okay, yeah, let's buy these little breadboards for our programming classes. And once we finish, say, all of Google CS first, we can actually start programming on a physical circuit board like this. So I could even... And the nice thing, though, about this little plugin here is I can freeze this field, meaning that after I add and every other field gets cleared, this will stay here, right? I'm adding all these on today's date, so it's a nice little plugin to have. Basically, it's called Frozen Fields plugin. So you can just basically, all these you can just Google Anki plugin and then the name, or just Anki plugins, and see. And you basically just put in a number on the Anki page and then download it, restart Anki, boom, you're good to go. So anyway, I could do the same thing. What does this image describe? Now I'm actually thinking of it where it's like, that is maybe a good idea. Where is it where it just, okay, this is the reverse. I don't have one that's just front to back anymore. Or is this only? Okay, this is if there's nothing in source only, but there is in front. Oh, what is going on here with this card? This is if there's source only. This shows the source. Wait, quite confusing. So if there is something in source only, this one's saying if there's nothing in source only, put the front. Interesting. This one doesn't seem like it's working because I do have something in the front. Nothing in the back. Let's try that again. No, nothing. Yeah, this means if there's nothing in this field, continue, which is what we want. However, this one, though, should be the one that's like this and only being created if we put an X here. Because now if we put an X here, you can see that nothing. Wait, no. If we put an X here, it should be that we are showing the source. Or is this just outdated? I wonder what's going on. Source only, put it in there. And then you get rid of this. The idea behind this is if I put an X here, it won't show the front. This is obviously just completely useless at this point. Just show this. Although, wouldn't it just be nice just to have this as a text automatically? So if there is a front, no, really, if there is a source. Yeah, we need this guy. If there's a source, put source, and then what does this image describe? This way, although it would be nice to have the date right below it. She looks a little bit better like this. This way I don't have to add this type of card for each of these. This is automatically going to say, what is the source? What is this image talking about? Describe. Which means, though, I'd want something. I'd want an answer at least. What does this image describe? You know what that kind of means, actually? It'd be nice to have a source description. Could actually make that. Oops. 2. And then what does this image describe? Not reverse, but actually source description. Now I can just put in here like potential next project after CS first. If I have some kind of question, I can put it in here. I'm going to want to change this down here. If for some reason I don't want to show the source description at all, I can just put an X in here. Just showing the source. You know, because sometimes I'm capturing a screenshot. It's just a nice story, allegory, or something like that, where it doesn't necessarily need, a question and answer pair type thing. So it's nice to have that as an option. So yeah, so basically I'm adding a card. I'm just plugging in or dragging in, this screen capture I took, and I'm describing it. Pretty easy. I can go over here and be like, okay, at least I now have that in. I'm doing something with it. Okay. Let's see what other files we've got. Behavior design games. That could be interesting. Big ideas. Books. It's basically a challenge. How can we turn these into Anki? And what we learn about doing that could even help us, with some kind of future app where we're looking to not only make use of a spaced repetition software, but also, a spaced presentation software for maybe even, spaced storage, right? Because if we're operating on the idea that the spacing effect works neurochemically, which, it must, then we can sort of use that same algorithm, same idea of purposely adding in time in between presentations, to potentially upregulate how long we're going to remember something, not just a fact, but an image, a memory, that we had with somebody. Why couldn't we design something where we put photos in a description and we basically engineer the ideal presentation algorithm to ensure that you're going to remember that memory, say it's especially important to you, a vacation photo or something, for a longer period of time. That could be, habits, habit triggers, and then once you get artificial intelligence involved, an algorithm, a spacing algorithm, a learning algorithm that can learn from you, and when you ideally need to be reminded and presented with that material, then you now can start, personalizing learning far more efficiently than any one curriculum could ever hope to do. And definitely I feel like artificial intelligence and education are about to make a huge merger here in the next coming decades. In all fields, really, habit formation, and all kinds. It's going to be quite amazing. So yes, let's take a look at some of these ideas here, because another fun plugin is what to do with images. So if we can find a cool image, it's kind of cool. A periodic table of gamification elements, all this types of stuff. Game learning is something that designing an educational application, you want to take in mind. Okay, so here we have the frequency of coding references. This definitely have to do something with this. So let's put it in here. We can look at it. We can take the title and start that off as the description at least. The frequency of coding references for each sub-theme across the conditions for the theme. So it doesn't, I would have ideally, okay, I did get this legend, but was there no description underneath it I could have copied as well? Unfortunate. Looks like walking is a task. Okay, I do kind of remember this study. Basically, when they got, it was 3 different groups about, trying to get them to walk more often. One group walked as a task to be like checked off. One group walked as an experience and they journaled about it. And then one group walked with a journaling, but it was more of a self-reflective exercise. And they had to evaluate their performance after a certain set of time. I think it might have been weekly. And that self-evaluation was enough to basically get them to walk much more, but only, under this feedback group. Right? So they were given feedback about their performance. They realized it, stepped it up. So it's this combination of feedback from others, feedback from yourself that really gets you to perform more repetitions. And any behavior you want to become habitual, it's all about repetition. So basically, we could even put that in there. What I basically just said shows how the repetition, prediction of repetitions just maybe even just number of happens most with external feedback, external and internal evaluation feedback. And it doesn't seem like I have it in here now, but I know I have another graph in one of these somewhere, kind of talking about this, about, especially how so few educational, but really like, habit development apps trying to get you to do something, fail on that front, or at least it's the most underrepresented aspect of, behavioral modification, the external social aspect of it. So this would be a great image to combine here if I could find it. But for now, pretty good. So this alone is enough to get at least one card in there. And I'm pretty good for now with that. In the future, I see it again. Maybe I go and edit it and I'm like, okay, now after making these links months later to other, reference materials, I now have a pretty good question for myself in here and I'm going to add it in. So that's why, reviewing and adding are kind of so linked. And it's like this input-output cycle. So by reviewing, you realize what gaps in your knowledge you still have, and that helps you adding new cards. Okay. We've got more, of course, gamification ones, lots of big ideas ones, which are always fun. Fat shaming bad. Okay, this one's good. Well, is it? Let's find out. I couldn't stand another fat shaming. Like, if fat shaming worked, then no one in the world would be overweight. Okay, I like that because I'm somebody that does fall prey to that. Dang, I had a little accident there. Hold on 1 second. I'm gonna need to clean this up. Go ahead and pause the microphone here real quick. Okay, let's continue where we were. So yeah, you can even say, yeah, then no one in the world would be overweight. Why do we know fat shaming doesn't work? But you can see I started with the question. I started with the answer to give myself sort of a question. Just basically splitting up this quote. You know, if it was really super critical, I would probably even then take it a step further and make a close card out of this. You know, and I can show you how that would work real quick by going close. If start pulling things out, this is an example. Obviously, this is not so. I mean, I do kind of like this, and it does raise a good point. In fact, I could even say, then no one in the world. Not putting four close cards in a sentence so short. It's not something I'd probably do all the time, but hey, that's 4 cards made right there. And you know, it's probably going to help me at least remember that little nugget more often. So let's go back to our car basically. We don't want to lose today's date. Now we can delete that one. How about that? Okay, how about going fishing for ideas? This is transcendental for me. The idea that writer's block is one of the things that exist when you believe that they exist is transcendental. And hearing it from Lynch himself, he's right. When you're fishing and when you are fishing and no fish comes, you shouldn't think, I have fish block. That's stupid, makes no sense. But if you believed in it, would fish for 15 minutes and stop and go do something else. But that's not how fishing works, and that's not how writing works. Thank you, Lynch. I won't believe in stupid theories based on fear. Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I could even call this David Lynch on writer's block. What is the concept of fish block? When you don't catch a fish after 15 minutes, you say you have fish block? Oh, that would be ridiculous. You realize you need to let the fish come to you. Just like ideas. Which is why David Finch is often talking about that. About, you know, fishing for ideas. So it's a great one. What's this guy? Well, looks like Anki is saying that I've already added this one in. Interesting. We can even probably, or maybe, could we even look this up? Only if I have a description. Okay, so 4 days ago I did add it in. I didn't delete it. How about that? I didn't put anything in there yet, but that's okay. I did do the source only quote. Oh, X mark. Culture rarely is generated. Okay. So that's, at least it's in there. Waiting for something good to be done with it. What's this one? Title is What Other People Think of You Is None of Your Business. After enduring a lot of mocking at school, my dad once told me, what other people think of you is none of your business. Ooh. I like that one. This This is just a good one to be reminded of. I'm gonna leave it there for now. Now, something like this already is looking pretty big. What about this guy? Okay, that is interesting. I saw this on a video. Just showed how blue was never mentioned in the Iliad or the Odyssey, and how in many cultures it's one of the last colors to be, expressed separately from other colors, and how in the Iliad and the Odyssey they described the ocean as like dark, like wine red. Interesting. So I could say blue is missing from history. Love that. What's this graphic show? Well, why is it that blue seemed to develop last? Now, I don't have an answer for that yet, but I'm hoping that I put the question in. Maybe when I see this card, I might give a second, Google that, and add in the answer. So I'm okay with just that right now. Or I could go look it up. I think we're cool. Okay. Remember? Added this guy. Okay, I did like this. So I wrote how bets work, because I was kind of impressed with this. I've never really thought of the 1 out of 30,000 chance to win it multiplied by the ticket price, right? I could even say if you have 1 out of 30,000 odds on a bet, win tickets, and the bet costs $100, at what financial point is this a reasonable bet? And of course, it's $3 million. Now, I want to see which cards this would generate. What does this image describe? How bets work. Then interesting. It doesn't even have anything in the add reverse, and it's already adding. That shouldn't. Something does not work with those ones. But it should only if there's something in that. Dang it. Technical difficulties. Let's see. Shouldn't it only show it if it has some, does it? Well, this is turning into an Anki tutorial as well. Fascinating. Can fix that. Another point here. Either way, it was at the point where I put it, if I only put an X, I'll have to fix that. Either way, that's an easy fix later on, and it won't affect my adding right now. So that's good for me. Let's work. Ooh. What are these time patterns? Solutions of time. Very large image. What is an example of prospective short time perception? Or about what is an example of a prospectively short time perception? Answer: an exciting day. Something you're looking forward to. As it's happening seems quite short. Interestingly enough, though, so we can basically freeze all these fields if we want to ask multiple questions about this card, which I can think of 4 cards right away. We can, of course, ignore the duplicate because even though the first field is the same, the other fields aren't. So there's nothing necessarily wrong with having a duplicate. You can have multiple cards, and it's only because this is the first field listed. So not worried about it. But now we want a prospectively something that feels longer than it actually is while it's happening. Airport delay. What about something that feels like lasted forever while you're looking back into the past? That same exciting day. Oh, it seemed, when you did all those amazing activities with your best friend in 3rd grade, wasn't it fun? Was. And the last one, when we actually think about that airport delay now, I should change it here. When we actually think about that airport delay now, we're surprised that it's like, what do you mean? That didn't seem like any time at all. So just goes to show you, what's interesting is that these so-called illusions of time exist because time itself is, well, if it's not an illusion, then, because I don't think it's an illusion. There's obviously an arrow of time thanks to entropy, which cause and effect. But certainly there's an illusion of a universal time, or that the passage of time is the same for everyone in every point of the universe. That we know to be a false assumption. So let's see. Now we can get rid of these. We're good on this image. Yeah, that guy. Let's delete him here. Now I think I did add this. I know I knew it. Those are interesting. What's this? So how can we attempt to introduce the concept of negative magnitudes? Now that is a fancy sounding thing. An attempt to introduce the concept of negative magnitudes into philosophy. Like this. 2 opposite forces canceling each other out. Walking 5 feet to the right and then 5 feet to the left. Both cases, result is 0. But the zeros are different. canceled out. Aufheben. German, love that they have their own a word for zero that doesn't mean simply, the same type of zero as a regular old zero. Is different from the zero prior. Is different from the zero. Love this. Prior to any force. That's interesting. Absolute value. Now, Hegel going into this is a little bit more interesting that I'm not that familiar with. Might want to put a note for later. Hegel, absolute values. Could be interesting. Questions. The future. Basically, this is just, work that might help me in the future add a card. So, the essential point of the joke is that in Hegelian logic, what's been canceled out is a significant determination of the thing. And the differences between the negation of milk and the negation of cream alters the thing, so far as the thing is the result of different negations. Negation of milk and the negation of cream. I think we're missing some kind of joke here. Hegel, zero, milk, cream. I remember there being some... this is where it came from, because there's this philosopher, coffee without cream. Yeah, we need this joke. You bring me a coffee without cream? Come on. So we've got some value here. Not sure. Bring me a coffee without cream. So that's kind of funny. So they don't even have cream. So the idea of not having cream means they can't bring you a coffee without the cream. They can only bring you a coffee without the milk. That's kind of funny. And that's a brain teaser to even think about. Pretty funny. So I'm good with there. And I do like this because obviously I know from this there's so many cards I can get. But I'm going to, save some for later. And in that whole process, I was reminded of this, which is interesting in and of itself. Okay. Basically, and we can continental versus analytic, right? We can just copy in what are the two camps of philosophy, two main camps. Analytic. I mean, there's probably lots of questions right here. Then describing analytic. Specific problems solved by reductionism. Whereas continental, large topics, looking at the big picture. We've got Chomsky, we've got Zizek. Listen. So that is interesting. And I could just boom right here. Analytical continental. Plenty of cards right here. What's this? One objection I find interesting comes from people like Noam Chomsky, that complex general thinking requires an understanding of the principles of language that we are far from having. The idea being that before a system can develop powerful, complex thought, the way humans do and beyond, it must first possess a system that can replicate the structure of language, and that is still a very young science. Before a program can teach itself to build language, first needs to have some idea of what it's aiming for. Our brains have evolved a specific capacity for language that provides us with mental techniques we do not comprehend yet. Okay. Let's try to break this down. Complex general thinking. Complex thought. Ipso facto. Complex language. For AI. But we don't have the understanding of the principles of language yet. First must possess a system that can replicate the structure of language. I like this last line a lot. Our brains have evolved a specific capacity for language that provides us with mental techniques we do not comprehend yet. Okay. So some of the people that are saying, this is basically Chomsky's argument in a nutshell for, I might even put this at the top, Chomsky's argument for against AI happening, or really general AI happenings anytime soon. Okay. What else we got on here? Wish I could find more of those. Could be in science. Some more platform ideas. General tips could be fun to add some stuff. Science. Now, this I actually think I might have added already. I wonder if I remember adding. Remember adding this. Close image. You can look at your tags here, and even the type of card. Enhanced close. Now, okay, I think it is image inclusion enhanced. And yep, you can even see. So obviously we need to add in, like these are great. But this is why you want to be good at titles and adding tags. At least something like planet temperatures. I didn't put plant temperatures. Oh, but I've got it in there, and I kind of did what I wanted to do, which was, okay, this could actually be a classic. Let's look at this. Image occlusion enhanced, a plugin you can download. Now, actually, now that I think about it, I think I got it. Click on this, add new image, find the image, And where do I even have it? Oh yeah. Documents, folder, science. Here we go. Human species timeline. Something I would love to know and have in my head. Okay. So there's lots of things we can do with this guy. Easiest, of course, is just to start covering up these guys. Now this, years ago, I want to be prompted for how many. I don't want to get confused. Is this in a later date? You know, is this a year or is it the name of this type of species? Whereas if I don't know, I'll know that it's a name. Again, a name. Keep going. Shouldn't there be another years ago? Yeah. Year, it's your places. So now I can hide all, guess one, generate cards. So this will basically, one card, for example, it might reveal this box, or this box will be basically, is what I'm trying to guess, but it's still going to hide all of these. You know, whereas this option is going to only ask me about this, but I'll get the context from all of these. So in a way, I actually like them both, of course. This one's a little harder. This one's a little easier. I generally tend to go for this one because while it might be tougher at first, it's more useful later on to make sure that, you know, I don't need the contextual clues. Because, for example, if I see everything else and I see that this says, you know, Europe and Near East, and this says Central and Southeast Asia, I'm going to be like, oh, this is obviously Africa. So it doesn't really matter too much. Obviously, it's something that's more personal preference, and that's probably changes and has changed for me based on, you know, what I'm, what image I'm, you know, close deleting. So look, I just added 10 cards. Now I could even go and do the same thing. If I really wanted to learn this, and then do, look, 10 more cards. And we can even see, if we go in, added today, you can see these types of cards. So these are the hide one, show all. So I have to be like, okay, which one was this one? Oh yeah, Homo erectus. So these are the 10 that we added. Whereas this one is, they're all hidden. And obviously, though, I have to think of this one. So it's a little harder. So if you really want the benefit of both, yeah, why not? And I just added 20 cards. That simply. Of course, it can be quite easy to add cards this way, but you have to think, okay, if I'm adding these, I'm going to have to be reviewing them. And in Anki, you know, and obviously not just one time. So obviously take that into consideration. So yeah, now one thing we didn't do that well, actually, which is kind of funny. Yeah, oh, it's not letting us sort. Come on. We want to see all of these we added today, and at least add in, you know, human. You know, we should have put it in a header. If we put it in a header on one, I wonder if it'll put them on all. I'm not sure. Maybe, but not seen that way. This is, no, better to have it. I want to search later on. So I'll also reinforce it in my head, you know, not to forget it. Okay. Delete that guy. Now, this 3-parter is pretty cool as well. Future CO2 emissions, a little depressing. You can't win, you can't break even, and you can't get out of the game. There's a lot of good fun things here. Clear liquor, how to drink. Funny stuff. Some of these things could also be in the gamification, obviously. Yeah. The general principle here. Go back to the basic. The way we talk to our children becomes their inner voice. What becomes a child's inner voice? Parents agreed. In this case, I do want to add that reverse. Delete that guy. Interesting. For some reason it's opening it as a sound. Fact. Tribalism. Oh yeah, already added. We are responsible for everything in our lives. Good thing to be reminded of. You go to whoa, truths, and we can just copy this in. See. This is pretty exciting. Yeah, like how close AI is getting to protein folding. Structure prediction. Because basically, just by knowing the amino acids, it's quite complex to know how a protein structure is going to fold in three-dimensional space. You know, there's quite a lot of complex interactions going on. So up until now, as you can see by this graph, the best we've ever gotten is what, like 50-ish%, which is basically like guessing at that point when you get heads or tails, right? The 50% marker is like a guess, no better than guessing. So I'm kind of hovering around that for quite some time, a number of years. And recently, you know, we're getting close. I guess this idea is once you get past the 90% threshold, you've basically gotten there within an acceptable level of error, I suppose. I'm not sure. But I guess once you're able to predict protein folding structures with that kind of ability, you'll be able to make a whole target of new drugs designed you know, much more specifically. It's fascinating stuff on the forefront. What was that? 3 laws of thermodynamics idea? Oh, yeah. Love this idea. What's this guy? Acorn growing strategies for a mast year, something like that, where they do something to where they can have a bunch. Should probably look that up. Well, we're just about done here. It's like we're wrapping it up. Let's do one more. It is kind of crazy. Let's see. Deb year for us. Anyway, I think this is a good time as any to stop here. Hopefully that got a lesson in how you can add sort of any type of card, anything, any piece of knowledge, a quote, you found interesting. You kind of use Anki as a second brain, a personal knowledge maintenance system. All right. Checking out, explorers. See ya.